When you look at this side-by-side comparison throughout the bill, it reads like a how-to guide in historical whitewashing. Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the writings of Frederick Douglass?
I am.
Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the writings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yes.
Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the history of Native Americans?
The way the bill is laid out,
that's a yes or no question.
Because we were very clear that we could not be conclusive about every single document out there that we could. I'm going to give you an answer. You're not. This isn't a trial. I'm going to give you an answer.
Okay, I'm ready for the answer.
The way it's set out is so that a teacher can go to different documents in different authors by which to teach from. It's by no means meant to be a conclusive list.
Let me just ask you one more time. Are you aware that this new version of the bill from the Senate removes the history of Native Americans? It's on page 3 of the side-by-side if you don't have it in front of you.
Then I believe you.
Okay. Are you aware that this new version of the bill removes mentions of Cesar Chavez?
Yes.
Are you aware that this new version of the bill removes mentions of Susan B. Anthony?
Yes, I am.
Yet the new version of the bill from the Senate, this is not the bill we all passed as a House, but the Senate's version, it still includes the writings of Alexis de Tocqueville, and he's not even an American. Could that be because he's a white man?
Not exactly.
When you look at this side-by-side comparison...
Hey, Shalom. I'd like to start out by giving all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ruchak, Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect of Israel. This is the Mayim in Atlanta. And you see a clip here. This is actually from 2021. And it's over in Texas on a bill basically introduced to whitewash history, to remove parts that Jake has developed from history, to remove Jake from history, really, and Esau's atrocities from history. And we look at this, it's 2021, but this is still relevant because that's what these Edomites, so-called Edomites being so-called Caucasian people, as well as those tiny top small hats with the big noses. Those are Edomites. Not every single so-called white person or tiny top person that you see, though, is actually an Edomite, because it's about your bloodline and who you come from your father's seed. And they are trying to take away the atrocities that they have committed on this earth so that they can still be respected. These things that they gloried in at one point are becoming a shame unto them, and they're trying to remove all of that shame from off of them, but they're not going to be able to. As it says, shame shall cover thee. You know, these are the sins of your youth that are coming into fruition because you're being judged right now. These things are being called out. You're being judged, and that sentence is right around the corner. It's coming very soon. But I'm saying 2021 might not seem relevant, but they're still trying to remove our history. We just saw Trump talking about how the Smithsonian has too many quote-unquote black artifacts in it or something like that. And he's trying to clean that up, you know. And so I just went into Google and I just typed remove black history from to leave it open-ended just to see what comes up. And you see quite a few things, relevant 2025 things. You see from the White House, it says restoring truth and sanity to American history. Over the past decade, Americans have witnessed a concerted and widespread effort to rewrite our nation's history, replacing objective facts with a distorted narrative driven by ideology rather than truth. This revisionist movement seeks to undermine the remarkable achievements of the United States by casting its founding principles and historical milestones in a negative light, because it is all negative. You look at the founding fathers, it's a bunch of warlocks, and they built this country off of that. You look at how America started, go back to Cristobal Colon, Christopher Columbus. It was all off of bloodshed. They came here and stole this land. He said that he couldn't put his sword down for a number of minutes because he had so much killing to do. It was taken wickedly, and so these wicked truths are being uncovered. And it's really the U.S. that has changed history. And really Edomites have changed history to represent what they want you to know about them, which is they want you to think they're morally upright. They want you to think they're actually white people and not red, not the Edomites. They want you to think that they are the Lord's people, the Christians and the tiny hats. You know, they want you to think that Judeo-Christianity is actually how you worship the Lord, and it's not Edomite supremacy like what it is. They have changed history. And as we know, that there's famous quotes out there about how history goes to the victors. History is the lie agreed upon. And now people are not agreeing upon this lie, calling it out, but Esau wants to put it all back into a box and cover it all up. But they're not going to be able to do that. It's time for them to be judged. This one says the quiet deletion of black history within federal agencies in the fight to stop it. This is from capitalbnews.org. It says, when you start to fiddle around with history, that isn't what makes a country great. It makes us weaker, one historian said. Yeah, the Edomites are known for messing around with history, messing around with images, iconoclasm, which we now even call whitewashing because they're so well known for doing this. Go to, which I wasn't planning on getting this, but we're going to go here because this is what Esau has done. Wait, hold. Heathen image. Yeah, First Maccabees 3 and 48. This is when they got into our temple during the time of, or after Alexander the Greek conquered Israel. And they got into our temple, and here's what they did. And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen, this is going into so-called white people, and these tiny tops, because Alexander the Greek was an Edomite. And that's why these people look up to him. These Edomites currently look up to him because this is the first time they came onto the world stage and conquered the known world. But here's what they did in our temple of the Israelites, the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, which is the Lord's temple, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai's temple. But they did this in there. Why is there an ad? Salakia. Salakia about that. Not sure why there's an ad within a Bible app. Oops. Maccabees. No wonder that didn't come up because I was going to Second Esdras. But First Maccabees 3 and 48. And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. They painted themselves in there. That's changing history as well, iconoclasm. And then they also, dang, that's annoying. But they did it to the other nations as well. They moved into Greece and then started calling themselves the ancient Greeks. The Greeks, in which they're not. That's Japheth. That was Japheth who was there. I've been watching that show uh, on Apple TV. It's got Jason Momoa going into Hawaiian history, and you see that they still dressed, at least in those days, dressed like the ancient Trojans and ancient Greeks. You see that, and Esau put that on himself, and we've done it to the other nations. You could even think about how they call themselves the Aryans, but those are the Elamites, the East Indians. They take and they pretend to be the Egyptians, even though they did conquer Egypt during the time of Alexander. But they pretend, they'll show you movies where they're supposed to be Pharaoh from the time of Exodus. No, those were Hamites, very dark-skinned people. They do this, and they're being called out on their false history that they have done. They're being called out on the atrocities that they've committed, and they're trying to cover every bit of it up. We're not going to get into this article, just showing you they really are trying to remove the atrocities that they have committed onto Jake. But it's not going to work. It's not going to work, Esau. This is book of Obadiah 1 and verse 10. It says, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob," Jacob and Esau were brothers, black and brown, for so-called white. Those are actually the closest people to each other. They were twin brothers in the womb together. Obviously went our separate ways, which the Edomites represent wickedness, and the Israelites, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as well as our scattered, represent righteousness. And we went our separate ways, but they're really close to us, and because of the blessing, they have committed massive acts of violence against us throughout history, from the time they came onto this earth, from the time of you go into Exodus, us coming out of Egypt. The first nation to go against us were the Amalekites, who are Edomites. They have committed violence against us and great atrocities. Think about our captivity under them, slavery, and then post-slavery, and even going back to the Roman Empire and the gladiator games and the mass violence committed through then. And even under Rome is where Yahushua was crucified. They've committed violence against their brother Jacob. And it says, "Shame shall cover thee," because these things were far above and beyond. And you didn't think of your latter end. You just slaughtered Jacob. But as it says, "He that killeth with the sword shall be killed with the sword." So these things are coming for you. But that shame is here first, and they're trying to remove all of it. It says, "For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever," because they are the only nation that gets completely done away with. You even see it talked about here in verse 18, which we'll read it. Obadiah 1 and 18. "In the house of Jacob shall be a fire, in the house of Joseph a flame." So in the northern and southern kingdom. "In the house of Esau," so-called white people, and those tiny tops, "they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall be none, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau," their whole bloodline, their house, their race, their stock. "For the Lord, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, hath spoken it." This is coming down from the Lord, because he's seen everything you've done throughout the ages. And the course of action is to remove your entire bloodline from off this earth. But first, you're going to go into a really hardcore captivity, so some of that violence could come back upon you. You're not even going to be considered people in that day. You considered us 3/5 of a man. You're not even going to be men. You're just going to be punching bags, entertainment. That's what's coming for you for your violence against Jacob. This is the book of Psalms 137 and verse 7. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom, so-called white people in those tiny tops. Edom means red, and you can see the blood showing forth through their skin. These are the Edomites. In the day of Jerusalem, who said, race it, even to the foundation thereof. They helped to destroy our temple during the time of the Assyro-Babylonians, or the Babylonians really coming in and leading us into, or taking us captive. They helped. These Edomites helped to race our temple. And so we're at the word race, because this came to mind because they're erasing our history, in which these are different words, but that's why it came to mind, race and erase. But race is Strong's H6168, Ira, which is to be bare, be nude, uncover, to leave destitute, to discover, to empty, to raise, to pour out. This is to lay bare by emptying, to make naked, to strip bare. And that's what they're doing with our history. They're taking it away from the thoughts and minds of everyone. They're doing that with their history too, basically just with history. They're emptying it. To lay bare by emptying. They're emptying out our accomplishments. They're emptying out their atrocities, and they're erasing our history, which Israel or Jerusalem is a people before it is a place. And so they're trying to empty out the people from history again. They'll probably make tokens of it too if they were actually able to get rid of it, but they won't be. This is their end. The truth is out. People understand that these are, if they don't know the word Edomite, they can tell that these are wicked people. They can tell that those people over there in the land calling themselves the Lord's people are the devil's people, Satan's people. And they can also tell that their time of rulership is at an end. They're done. We're going to finish here at Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5 and verse 1. Lord willing, that ad does not pop back up. But Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 1 says, Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him. And this is what you're seeing on the highways and byways, with the Israelite men standing up and prophesying against those that have afflicted him. First and foremost being so-called white man in these tiny tops, standing right there in front of them in boldness, because decades ago this would not have been able to happen. They would have brought out the pickup trucks and some yards of rope to come string us up, but not anymore. This is the time of the Great Awakening. Ezekiel 37 is happening. Wisdom of Solomon 5 is happening. It's in motion. Letting them know that we know the truth. We know what's about to happen to us and what's about to happen to you. And laying the judgment out there, laying what they've done out there, and telling them what's about to happen to them. But it also says, and made no account of his labors. They're currently trying to do that. They're trying to erase our history, trying to erase that we've even been here on this earth. Oh man, that is annoying, Salakia. Trying to get rid of everything that we have accomplished, everything that they've done to us, and it's not going to work. Wisdom of Solomon 5 and verse 2. When they see it, the Israelites standing on their feet, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be, man, it's never done this before. This is Satan. Wisdom of Solomon 5 and 2. I'm going to go quick. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for. These Edomites are not going to be able to get their enterprise accomplished. They're not going to be able to completely erase what they've done to us. And they're not going to be able to continue in their rulership. So, Lord willing, that was edifying. I'd like to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect of Israel. Shalom.